All right, here we go. Take two. Welcome, everyone. This is the Data for Good's third Fireside chat. And as you can see, our guest for tonight is Wes Moon. We will be talking more about him, but first, let's go over what we are doing today. So, 6 to 6:15, we are basically going to wait for everyone to join us. And we are going to tell you how to work with Slido.com. That's how we will be interacting with our audience. For those who have already been here, please bear with us. It's just a couple of minutes. So that the others know how to interact with us. Basically, we don't want all the questions happening in the Google Hangouts chat. So that's why we will be using Slido. 6 to 6:15 is when Jake, who's our host for tonight, will be talking with Wes. And 6:45, we will be taking all questions from you. For those who don't know, this event is being recorded. This is my most favorite slide from this entire presentation. Don't worry, I took it off the internet. This is totally a legitimate website. So uh, just so you know, this entire event is being recorded. We do plan to upload it on YouTube so that you can look at it in case you have internet troubles or you just want to talk to us again. Having said that, we wanted to let you know about this uh, website called flatten.ca. So this website was built by a group of engineering students from the University of Toronto. So they are bachelor's, first year or second year students, and they've taken up the initiative to build this COVID-19 flatten the map website. So even if you do not exhibit any symptoms, try going into this website and enter your information so that they have more. It's a crowdsourcing app. The more information people enter into it, the more context or more perspective they have to help solve the problem. I think it's an interesting initiative, so give it a try. All right. Now we move on to Slido. It's basically a very simple concept. It doesn't matter if you use your phone or your laptop. Just open your browser of your choice and go to slido.com. So that's slido.com and enter the event code. You don't have to log in, you don't have to do anything. Just go to the browser, go to slido.com and enter the event code, which is DFG03. So that's Data for Good 03. And you can start asking questions. So the best thing about Slido is you can upvote or ignore any questions. Say someone has already asked a question that you like, you can simply go and click on the question so that we know that a lot of people have the same question, and this question goes to the top. It's highlighted, and we can ask the host who is moderating the chat will ask this question to our guest. It's a pretty simple concept, but let's give it a try. What I want you to do now is go to slido.com and try to enter a question. It's just a test. It doesn't have to be a meaningful question. Uh, Anything goes. I'm going to wait for at least one or two questions to pop up on my screen so that I know at least a few people here know how it works. Oh, will Deepika see this? Yes, I do see it. Friday is coming. Yes, thank you. Why do, why do cats hurt me when I just want to love them? I don't know. How is everyone doing? Okay, so we know at least 4 or 5 of you know how Slido works, so this is pretty great. Hi, Stephen. Thanks for joining us. All right, so now we know how Slido works, so congrats. We are almost through. The next part is a bit more tricky. It's about how to answer a poll on Slido. So we want you to take part in our polls because since this is our only way to get feedback about what you think about us, apart from the questions. Right now, I'm going to open a poll, which is basically, have you heard about data science before? So next to the Q&A section, you should have a section called polls. Just go to that section and try to answer the question yes, no, or if you have been here before, you can very well say this question is getting old. Right now, I have about 8 votes. I'm going to stop maybe when we have 15. Maybe I can share the screen. Oh, we have 10. Okay, someone does think this question is getting old. So once again, for everyone who just joined, we are using Slido. Go to your web browser, go to slido.com and just enter the event number DFG03. That's Data for Good 03. All right, we are at 12. I think, yeah, we have like close to 32 people on the call and 13. Yeah, okay, we're getting there. I'm gonna wait for 2 or 3 more people so that we know that at least 50% of the audience knows how Slido works. We are at 14. So close. Okay, someone, I don't know how, but that worked. Okay. I'm going to keep the poll open for now so that you know if you want to practice on Slido about how to talk to us, you can just go on and click the poll, use the poll and let us know if you know who Data for Good is. So just to give you an idea, Data for Good is a GTA-based nonprofit. We use data from smaller nonprofits, bigger nonprofits or of all size, and try to host events so that all the data enthusiasts from the society can help them. It's kind of like a crowdsource way, crowdsourcing the skills of the public to help nonprofits. That's what we do. If you want to know more about us, just go to dataforgood.com and you should be able to find out more about us. Having said that, let's move on to the actual event. Our host for tonight is Jake, who's also Data for Good's marketing lead, and Lindy. You'll know more about them, but on to tonight's special guest. Rather than me saying about Wes, I think I'm going to pass it on over to Jeff, who's his friend for a long time. Jeff, can you take over?
I can. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Chadak. I'm the partnership lead for Data for Good Toronto. My job is to work with and bring in all the nonprofits to work with the Data for Good community. It is my honor to introduce tonight's speaker, Wes Moon. Wes Moon is currently the co-founder and chief operating officer of Wisely Fundraising. Wes will explain what Wisely is in just a minute. Wes has been a fundraiser and in the fundraising industry for over 18 years. He first started his career at the University of Toronto, where he was manager for annual programs for over 7 years. Wes then spent the next 5 years on the for-profit corporate side, working with charities to help them improve their fundraising. He then bounced back into fundraising, where he spent the next 5 years with both Trans-Canada Trail and the Sunnybrook Foundation, helping them raise millions of dollars through both annual fundraising and direct mail. Wes then jumped back to the corporate world, spending 2.5 years with a US company called Blackbaud, which is the largest software provider in the social goods space. Finally, in May of 2018, Wes made the leap with 2 others and co-founded Wisely. Wisely's mission is to bring artificial intelligence to the charitable sector. Wes, along with his co-founders and the full team at Wisely, are graduates of the DMZ Accelerator program, and Wes has personally led 2 rounds of funding for Wisely. On a personal note, Wes has a great wife who is also a fundraiser at Michael Garron Hospital Foundation, leading the fundraising efforts to battle COVID-19 for their hospital. Wes also has 2 kids, and so he's spending his spare time homeschooling them. It's my pleasure to introduce my longtime friend and colleague, Wes Moon.
Thanks, Jeff. You make my career sound pretty awesome. Thank you. Mostly I'm just, lucky and in the right place at the right time. I guess your question here is like, what do we do at Wisely? And I guess the path to Wisely, or how we started Wisely, was over the last 20 years trying to solve a particular set of problems, which is centered around using the limited resources that charities typically have to be the most effective that they can possibly be. And I like to tell a story. Back in my first job, we'd received a very significant gift from a woman that we didn't really know. She had made a couple $500 gifts in her history, and was sort of in her 80s, and we ended up receiving a very significant gift from her in the millions of dollars. And at that time, that represented a good percentage of our budget. We were super excited about it. And our boss at the time, our CEO, really brought people together. And quite frankly, we thought this was going to be a party. We had just received this massive gift. It came out of nowhere. It happened pretty quickly. And he really let us have it. His take on it, which I totally agree with, is that, we should have actually known that this little old lady had the capacity to make a $10 million gift. Someone throughout her time and more recently should have been in touch with her to qualify her. You should never be surprised with a $10 million gift. Was really like the take of it. And that's one of the problems that we're trying to solve, which is, how do you make sure that you're spending the right time with donors, the right donors, to make sure that you're running effectively, and to make sure that you're looking after the people who are trying to solve that problem that charity's working on. So I would say the dream of every fundraiser is to be able to talk to the right donor at the right time with the right ask. And some of the best fundraisers out there are able to do this using their intuition and their 20, 30, 40 years of experience. The challenge is for the rest of the people. You're new to fundraising. You don't have some of the same experience, and you're kind of trying to feel your way through it. So we're trying to use math to demystify what will be important, what will work, and really to make every fundraiser, every charity more effective, and able to do more of the good things that they normally do. Jake, I think Jake is going to come on the screen here in a minute, but he just shared a story about how he's fostering a kitten, and he's getting this kitten through a friend of his, and he'll look after that kitten for a couple of weeks while they actually find someone to adopt that. And to have someone work on a project like that costs money. Probably Jake's being supplied with some food, which costs some money. And if you really want to be effective, you want to save the kittens and make sure kittens are going to good homes. But that also costs money. So being able to produce the most that you can to make sure that you're looking after the most kittens or curing cancer or whatever it happens to be.
Awesome. Yeah, I am fostering a kitten. It's a little devil, but I love it still. But yeah, my motivation was pretty important because I just wanted to do something since I was home so much. So I had this, you could label me in a data set as bored and looking for something to do. And if you put me in an ML model with other people like that, then maybe I'd pop up with some other similar people who only do it once and then quit. But I'm going to try to go through with it. Excellent. Yeah. So hi, Wes. Hello, everyone. Again, it's Jake, but you're probably going to just see my smiling face because my phone is super old and it immediately just died on video. So at least I'm going to be smiling the whole time. So we want to move on to talk more about this deep learning and the need for AI here at Wisely. Mainly, why do you need this extremely modern technology to look deeper into these crevices of data And what does Wisely provide that cannot be done by any old fundraiser or group person that can just kind of use that intuition and be successful?
Yeah, great question. The very first thing that I'd say is that a lot of the things that we do today can really be done the old-fashioned way with hard work, people, and process. But I like to think that a couple of years ago, really, with the power of computers, math has become cheap. And back in 1998, I built my first model, or my first regression model. I didn't even know what it was. My boss at the time dropped off an article from the Chronicle of Philanthropy, and she said, "Hey, Wes, can you figure this out?" The article was like how banks are figuring out, who would be the best people to target for their investments. So very similar type problem. Wealth obviously is one of those key indicators based on volume of or transaction size. And I set about building my first model. The first time I ran it, it ran for 5 days and there was mistakes in it. And eventually over the course of 3 months and sort of a part-time capacity, I ended up learning that having a middle name was the most important thing to see if you become a major gift donor. And I think after this question, I'll probably spend, I see a question up on the screen here, what's fundraising? I'll spend a minute talking about fundraising. And the interesting thing about the middle name appearing as like the most important indicator was that if you had a middle name, that means that one of our researchers saw your name in a newspaper related to a business. They understood that you had capacity and they filled in your middle name into the CRM. And every single major gift donor had a middle name, and almost everyone else who was a regular person didn't. So the interesting thing was, yes, that model was predictive, but it was predictive because of the process. And I say that story to talk about how a lot of what we do can be done with people and process. But now a computer can do it much faster. It can do it at scale. And you can consume far more variables than you ever previously could using BI. So when we think about what does that mean for really for today, and what our platform does is that we can actually turn around predictions very quickly. We've built a prediction engine that consumes a great deal of data, and we'll probably spend some time talking specifically about some of that data, and produces two outputs. So today we're predicting next gift amount and next gift date. And if you think about, even if we were thinking about this in terms of sales, if you had a next gift amount or a next purchase amount and a next purchase date, it's easy to start to imagine how you might want to interact with that customer or that donor. And if that amount becomes substantial enough that you want to start to engage with that customer before they come into your store or before they make that donation, that becomes a very powerful tool that allows you to start managing your timeline a lot sooner. So when you think about, I would have talked about this already, automating the intuition of a fundraiser or of a prospect researcher, those folks are very good at their job. How do you do it at scale? Someone makes a $50 donation online yesterday. What should you do with them today? So when you think about what does our platform do that can't be done by a fundraiser, I might argue the only thing is speed. A lot of what we're doing can be figured out with hard work. Like there's really no deep secret here. It's being efficient, doing it cheaper, and being more effective. And And I wonder if it would be a good time. I see a couple questions here. What's fundraising? It might be worth going into there. And I see a question from my friend Sean Olds, who said, how do you convince someone who has 15 years of nonprofit experience that they need AI, deep learning, and models for data? Sean's another AI guy with Boodle. They do good work. So hi, Sean. Jake, is it worth spending a couple minutes talking about fundraising? I got a couple slides prepared.
Hey, yeah, no, absolutely. Go for it, Wes.
Sure. So what I'm going to do here is just share my screen. We'll see what comes up. Sean, did I get that right? Was that your question?
Actually, no, the AI must have taken over. But it's a good question.
It is a good question, and it's a question that we deal with every single day. Let's see. I'm presenting to everyone. I can't see what I'm presenting. Is my slide share working here?
Yeah, looks good to me. Sorry.
Yeah, you can see it? Okay, perfect.
I was trying to unpin you just to look.
So if we spend 5 minutes on this, I think it will really help set the context for everyone on the call. I know there's a lot of data scientists and people who want to be in data science that may not work in the nonprofit world today. And as an organization, Wisely is very focused on working with charities. And one of the things that we need is the charity to have a CRM. So we'll talk about some of the data that we require, but in short, they better have a CRM. Otherwise, it's hard for us to be able to make predictions. And when we think about verticals and charities that we like to work with, they're generally the larger ones. So you think about the Cause and Cure, UNICEF, Run for the Cure, the Canadian Breast Cancer Foundation, or Canadian Cancer Foundation, higher ed, like the U of T's, and in the United States, like the Dean Colleges of the world, international relief like UNICEF and UNHCR, Red Cross, those types of organizations really have pretty robust fundraising teams who go out there and work with a large group of donors to be able to secure revenue, donation revenue, so that they can go save people and save cats and cure diseases. So when you think about the fundraising methods, they generally go into 4 different categories. So we got events, and peer-to-peer is a subset of event, direct marketing, and what I like to call relationship-based giving, or mid-level and major giving. Mid-level and major giving is where we spend most of our time. We feel like that has the biggest impact on a charity's ability to raise money. When you think about what that may look like, often at organizations that are good at major giving, 90% of their revenue comes from 10% of their donors. Event fundraising, they go from galas to bake sales, peer-to-peer. These are just different examples of run, walk, ride, soccer tournaments, bike rides. And if we look at direct or mass marketing, this is also a major source of revenue. Mail, surprisingly, is incredibly important in this regard still today. I got a piece of mail this week from a charity. I did go online to make a gift, but the mail is a good prompter. Monthly giving or recurring giving, I'd wager that a good chunk of the people on this call is a monthly donor to an organization, or maybe 2. So these are lots of ways to find people and move them into mid-level and major giving. And mid-level typically starts where gift sizes are at about 1,000 and up. And major giving is really some of those transactional or transformational gifts where someone is making something happen that couldn't have possibly happened otherwise. Naming a building, starting a new school at a university, or a wing at a hospital. So really transformational type gifts. Even in the realm of animal shelters, just to use Jake as an example, they secure some major gifts, which might be food for the year, and really important method of fundraising. And these are the areas in which we lie. So I've got up here maybe a little bit of an intro into our data, and we can talk about it again later. But we're really consuming data to make our predictions. And again, I'll say this, we're producing 2 predictions today for our clients, which is next gift amount, next gift date. And we're doing that at scale every single day for all our clients. And with those 2 things, we then have built a sales enablement tool or a fundraiser enablement tool to ensure that those predictions are being put into action. Probably many of the people on this line have built reports or built a model that shows some pretty interesting things. And I've always found that it's not necessarily the hardest thing to build the model anymore. It's more about how do we put this into our business practice to produce results. So we're taking past donations. All of that data is very well tracked by charities. They're regulated by the government for good record keeping. And that record keeping means that they know where people live, how much they gave, how that gift came in. Then, the quality of the data that charities keep after that is pretty variable. Sometimes it's very robust, and they track every interaction between the donor and the charity. And some charities choose almost nothing. They don't record any of that. But with donor info, we're able to predict some ages on people or a proxy for age. And then we've got a model that will actually predict an age. We go to StatsCan, where we're getting income data, general financials based on someone's postal code, and past donations. So right now, we're not really able to predict with any degree of accuracy outside of people who have made transactions. Like, we need that transaction, at least one. And that really starts to become a center point for our predictions. But those other variables are extremely important, depending on the individual, and some of the variables will index higher or lower depending on who you are. So I hope that was a quick but insightful overview on how charities or nonprofits do their fundraising without taking too much time.
Yeah, it's thanks, Wes. You're kind of digging through all these campaigns and these extra labels that we use in the data. Data for Good, we've worked with donation data before, and we've had like data sets where there's 100 different unique campaigns, and you don't really know what each one was. It direct mail? Was it person to person? And was that gift that they considered at that event a major gift? So getting as much information as possible is really important. And actually, I have a quick little small question of how important is it to improve the way organizations collect data? Because the more they have, the more they can use.
Yeah, privacy's pretty important to us. So we're pretty careful about the data that we collect, the data that we use, and what we recommend our clients collect. Our application normalizes a little bit of the data that goes into a CRM if our clients elect to use that piece. And we did create that in mind so that we would actually have a better sense of using the data in more that they're entering in more of a real-time approach. And I would say that's probably starting to work for us. But the more important thing in our mind is being able to work with more charities regardless of their data. So if you had really succinct data for an organization, yes, of course you can make better predictions, but how much better are they going to be? Is the question that we keep asking. So our observed accuracy rate on next gift amount is about 90%. Give or take, it depends on the client and how good their data is, but it's really only a couple percentage points in either direction. And when we think about like getting that normalized data going in, that's when we can start to think about other types of models, for instance. So, can we start to gather sentiment, for instance, in a way that is still private, but like maintaining an individual's privacy, but also potentially predictive on the form of fundraising that would be most effective for them. Outside of just gift size, which right now fundraising and the method of fundraising largely falls to what's the size of that gift. So we think sentiment is something that can be collected and gleaned in particular from actions and having strong data go in there to answer your question. But we see it as less important today. What's more important is being able to build models on what 80 or 90% of the charities who are raising, $1 million or more actually collect in a sort of standard approach.
Yeah, excellent. Sorry for the ad hoc, but I thought it was an interesting question and a great answer. I'll try to drive us back onto topic. I get fascinated with myself. So, Wes, how do nonprofit organizations usually predict fundraising results? Like, we already talked about intuition. You mentioned CRMs quietly, a customer relationship management program. Do they look at these dashboards? Do they build linear regression models in Excel? Like, essentially, what is your common competition you try to pull people off of and say this is what's better, or it complements in a way?
Yeah, to be quite honest, there's a very wide range of capabilities and concepts and process that are in play here. So some organizations, like I'll name. Actually, I probably shouldn't name any in this particular one because I haven't asked permission in advance. But like some of the larger organizations in Canada who are raising, let's say they're raising more than 100 million, they'll have dedicated data analysts on staff who will build regression models, and like they're working full time on modeling data, and then working with the operations people at those organizations to put them into play. When you take a step down, you're taking a significant step down in capability. Then you're looking to Excel, and you're starting to say, okay, who are the most important people that we have dealt with in the last 3 or 4 years? So they start to move into an RFM type model or segmentation model, where they say, here are the people who keep our charity afloat and running. Here's how we want to deal with them. And it starts to become more of an individual intuition coupled or hacked together with Excel, and trying to figure out what should we do to outperform what we did last year.
Yeah. We work with RFM models, or we encourage our volunteers to try to use the RFM models, but usually the parameters need to be tweaked. And depending on, I can't even imagine the size of these organizations you work with, those numbers and those little facets of like a 411 person is totally different compared to 412. Like, it'd be cool to see the different ranges. In fact, we had an unsupervised model guy talking yesterday, and he was kind of hinting to clusters and finding this new information out of stuff. So yeah, it's good to see these practices being used for good. So tell us more about, I guess, the AI elements of it. Deep learning is the word that we throw around, and it's kind of like a vague concept even for me because I never touched deep learning yet. But I have friends that do it, and I just do regression. I'm like, it's fine, just regression. I don't know what this deep learning stuff is. Is there any specifics that you could share with us about your AI?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say first, we believe good machine learning models are based on good processes that you really want to automate. And part of that thinking is based around the idea that if you're trying to change the process of a business, that's extremely hard to do. So how do you start getting better today and then doing that 1% incremental improvement over time? Follow a process that works. And in fact, you'll probably end up with better predictions right out of the gate by doing that. Our models are using structured data. So I would probably say a lot of the really cool stuff that you read about in deep learning is based around like image processing and NLP. And we're doing it with structured data. And we're kind of finding ourselves a little bit, and I'm surprised by it, quite frankly, on sort of like the bleeding edge of using structured data for multiple organizations. And we're really looking at, we're using TensorFlow and our neural networks. And let me just make a caveat here. I am not a data scientist. I haven't done any programming in the better part of at least a decade, probably longer. So I sit in on all our meetings with our CTO and our dev team, but I am not a data scientist by trade any longer. So really what we're doing by moving into these neural networks, like today we have pretty good predictions on using regression. So if you think about like really where we started, that's exactly what we were doing. And that allowed us to lift our business off the ground. And moving over to these TensorFlow, it's better for production, like being in a productionized application. But we think of privacy and scale. So if we move to a federated model where data comes in, we then no longer need to train our model on any one particular data set. We start to look at data sets effectively in combination. So we're not saying Wes is a donor to this organization and Wes is a donor to this organization. What we're doing is doing the pattern identification on the process, the way the gift comes in, generally looking at things in a way where even if I were a large organization but starting a new process, understanding what that process would look like and making predictions based on that pattern identification. So moving to a federated model and using TensorFlow allows us to work with organizations that really have absolutely no choice in how they actually make their predictions because their data set wouldn't be big enough. If they were willing to pay for it, then the best data scientists in the world wouldn't be able to build a model. So as we move into really this deep learning aspect, which has really forced us to rethink a lot about how our models work, the goal is to be able to, it feels almost overused to me, but to democratize predictions in the charitable sector. And building this global model allows those who couldn't normally do this in a traditional sense. One of the drawbacks to it, in fact, is actually we gain privacy, we gain in sort of that privacy area, but we lose in explainability. That's both for us and our clients. So it's been an interesting approach, and some of the stuff that we've that we've tried to do. As I said, we're a little bit on the bleeding edge, and there's so much research around image processing in these deep learning models that we actually tried to make pictures of donors, like turn this into an image. And we've sort of done kind of like broke it into one donor's giving history and their wealth and sort of a timeline into an image that goes across a screen, which is in essence the same way we process it, using a color gradient to say like how successful in any given month is this person at giving and interacting and developing affinity with a charity. So that's where we're going as an organization. But right now we're moving all our deep learning models into production for all our clients. Like we've actually had a couple of really great tests. In fact, I can share my screen again here. Can I share my screen again? Present now. So if we look over at the graph that I've highlighted here, Jake, maybe just confirm that you can see that.
Yep, we got a graph on the screen.
Awesome. So really, like that's what we're looking at right now we're really just mapping prediction and actual on back testing, but saying like, we're actually pretty happy with what that graph looks like. This little confusion matrix that we're looking up here is where we started 2 years ago. We've been at it effectively. My first full-time day at Wisely was May the 4th, 2 years ago. That's really what we were looking at that time. It's we were making predictions into buckets and then figuring out, okay, well, and using back testing, can we even build a business around this using buckets and being predictive? And you can see even back then, our first models were still pretty good, all things considered.
Yeah, I immediately started looking at that confusion matrix when you popped this on the screen, and then I'm glad you kind of talked about it and said it was 2 years old, but it's cool to see all the different buckets. Now, I am pretty sensitive to time. It looks like I have like one more question from our side before we go into the user questions, and of course you can pick and choose what you want, but I'll let you choose between the topics we kind of talked about before. Mainly, you used to be a programmer, now you're a COO. How did you get started with this idea? And what previous iterations of the platform were not as successful with the predictions? If you want to go into the history of the company, or if you want to tell us about the success stories you've had along the way, maybe to help cheer people up as well. I'll leave that one up to you, and then we'll go into the audience.
If you give me 3 or 4 minutes, I'll touch on both.
Oh, even better.
Okay, perfect. I brought this one up. This graph here, I'm sharing my screen. And this was our first version of looking at we called it time to give model back then. And our first thought was the time to give, given enough time, theoretically in our minds, given enough time, everyone would donate. And that very much resembles the idea that given enough time, everyone will die. And we kind of lifted some techniques out of the medical industry around drug testing and really like predicting by taking this drug versus placebo and so on, will it actually improve lifespan? That's what they're looking at a little bit there. And in the very beginning, we were super excited about what we were seeing here. There's a little black line that represents the average, and each of those other ones would represent the likelihood to give for any individual donor and how that changes over time. What we did find was that this was somewhat predictive, but there were so many outliers that kept breaking the model. And even unfortunately, like, we didn't end up with something that we were super happy with on this. It took a super long time to run and train and so on. But some of the learnings that we had on it was that when the curve was changing more rapidly, was some of those important moments, which we've ended up using in some of our newer models as we progress through their improvement. But that was a pretty big fail, and we spent months on it because we were convinced it was going to work. I would say probably 4 months trying to make this work after we built the model before we decided time to build a new one. And it really, we keep forcing ourselves to rethink the problem from a different perspective to try to find a better way to solve it. And some success stories, and I think with the audience here, what I want to talk about is our team, and we've got none of our engineers are trained data scientists. They were all full stack developers. We've trained them in data science, and our belief on this is because we're building product that we wanted to be able to have engineers that could build predictions that would interact with the product in a meaningful way. And we've been thrilled with the result. They've been thrilled with the training and the work that they're doing. So they're building AI models in tandem with our product, our front end, back end product, and they have to interact with our MongoDB. They're writing the front end website and actually building the models and putting all those things together. And for us, it's been tremendously successful. And every day we see our developers being really elevated in their work and deeply engaged. Like, we're thrilled with how it's going, and so are they. And we work pretty hard, but all our clients are also amazing. That when we go home at the end of the day, or now we're all home all the time, we feel pretty good about what we've done. Our clients do incredible work. They're quite frankly incredible people. I've been fortunate enough to work in the sector for 20 years, and I've met so many donors, and really, you can't work with a better group of people. So, we're pretty thrilled about how it's going, how the team's evolving. Our clients are seeing success. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it's excellent, man. I'm quite keen on Wisely, especially scaling into the future with pretty much everything being online in a subscription-based model. I think every nonprofit's going to end up needing something to look at churn. And I think when math is so cheap, it's going to get even easier for you. Now, we got a heck of a lot of good Q&As. I don't know how to handle this, but it might be best if you pick and choose some that you like. I think I can combine a few as well. We're kind of still sitting on some older ones, but yeah, do you have Slido open right now?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I would say, how do you convince someone who has 15 years of nonprofit experience that they need AI, deep learning, or models for data? It's all about the problem that they're trying to solve. And quite frankly, it's not easy. We very much believe that right now we're still only working in the very early adopter phase of using AI in fundraising. And the idea there is, maybe 11% of the people, or 16% of the people that we talk to or that are working in charity are ready to actually take a leap like this. Now, what I would say is that under the current environment, things are changing pretty rapidly, and charities are being forced to look in the mirror about their process. And generally they're very conservative with their money, and they have to be, because the money is all coming from donors or the government, or some combination of that and ticket sales or who knows what. And they have to be very careful with their money. And right now, they're looking at it saying, hey, are we ready for a new world, which I think we're all about to step into, or not leave our house into? So I would say maybe right now is a great time, if you have a project that you wanted to pitch. People are listening. The second question here, or the first question, which is the issues and risks of bias in AI, for sure. I don't necessarily believe that AI is biased in itself. The data is biased, and the data is biased based on previous process. So if you like to talk about something that probably makes sense, if you're a university, you talk to business, you talk to law, and you talk to engineering graduates. Why wouldn't you? And what you would see is that because you're talking to those audiences, you're more successful in those audiences, and the bias of any prediction, even that we would make, would push towards those types of audiences. Now, we're trying to be very careful. We do a couple things. We don't look at name. We use as little PIP as possible, to make sure that we're not sort of biasing on gender or race, but we're biased on postal code, because it's quite frankly how a lot of organizations have run their business over time. What we do, and we do this in a very small percentage, is we make some false positives, and push them out to make sure that we're actually making the right kind of predictions that push towards best practice.
Awesome. Sorry, I got cut out a little bit there. Unfortunately, I got to hear it. And then my cat came in and said hi.
I feel like that was my best answer.
It's going to be on the recording. I got to watch it back and put the timestamps for everybody, but I trust. Yeah, I saw a couple questions here about StatsCan and kind of about predictiveness and like what's public, what do you add, what's private that's really predictive. Like, how do you leverage different indicators to improve just in general? And I guess the one thing in particular, what is like that really most powerful predictor that you guys have in your model?
Yeah, well, past behavior is always the most predictor of future behavior. We found that to be true for us. When you look at in giving, age is a massive predictor, but charities generally don't have the age of someone. A university has a pretty good proxy for age. They've got their graduation dates, and you can assume people are graduating at 22 or 23 or something for any undergrad. And what's interesting is income isn't particularly predictive on if someone will give. It is a predictor of how much someone will give and their net worth, liquidity. These are some of those sort of calculated fields that you can make using StatsCan data. And in the United States, like, the data is really wild and amazing. In Canada, it's certainly more private, and it rolls up to a very to a higher level. But quite simply, number one in virtually we'll call it the majority of predictions is past behavior, which should come at no surprise. And then out of that, really, like, where people live makes a big difference on how they operate. And birds of a feather, we find is pretty much true in that regard.
Yeah, excellent. Apologies for skipping one question. I swear I was combining 3 just to get out of Wes while we have this short amount of time. So I'll go back to the top. So does AI lower the costs for the fundraising? It seems like a cheaper alternative to having chuggers stationed on street corners to gain monthly subscription. I walk past those guys. Well, back in the old day when I walked outside, I used to walk past those guys quite a lot. AI, are machines better than people on the street?
In short, like I can't say yes or no. What I can say is that those people that you find on the street are extremely valuable to an organization, and that's why they do exist. And as a fundraiser, I was able to build some pretty substantial recurring giving programs. That's what those street chuggers do. You sign up, it's just like SaaS, 20, 25 bucks a month. And over time, you tend to start to grow an affinity to that charity and make larger gifts. So if we were talking in the traditional world of SaaS, it's a lot like land and expand. And those people are very good at finding people to land with. The stuff that we're doing in AI, we're focused on those larger gifts. We chose that as our place to start because those gifts are 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, million larger. And that's why we have been able to work on that ROI solution in a way that the street chuggers, who are very important and very effective, our ROI beats it, I'd say.
A great answer. Actually, the one time the chuggers worked, I was at a concert and I was getting an autograph and they had someone there signing up, people for CAMH. And I was like, you know what a great time. I'm in a great mood. I just finished a concert with someone I love. Yeah, sure. I'll sign up for CAMH. And they got me. And I felt proud about it though.
Yeah. And,
cool.
and over time, Jake, seriously, your affinity to them will grow, which could, end with you making some sort of estate gift. So if you're thinking about lifetime value, making some sort of estate gift to CAMH.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I was happy to see the sponsor there's CAMH. I was like, you know what, now's the time. And they probably could get me. We'll see if they send me an email soon. Yes. Now, I tried to talk about StatsCan before about the models, trying to sneak this one in there. It seems like they are publicly available information that you're trying to add, this university graduation stuff. The caveat being that Canada is kind of smaller in the historical records. I feel like we did touch on that, though.
I can answer that pretty easily. We're only using publicly available data sets and the data that the charity keeps in their CRM. So there's some pretty good data sets. Sometimes you have to organize them to make it usable.
Yeah, big true. You can add so much data and you only make it noisier, and then your model finds something new to hate that's just going to pull you away from the actual truth. Right. Okay. So I was actually thinking this too. You're talking about a lot of your clients being so big and using all these data sets. The question here is, how do you determine how much to charge a charity that might have limited resources? I'd like to add on, like, what's the smallest size organization that you wisely uses?
So probably we're in the, if you're raising, our smallest organization is raising about $2 million today. We would like to be able to go down to organizations that are raising about $1 million. Our pricing's in my opinion, awesome deal. We'll start with one user for $150 a month, provided you're on the right CRM. If we have to build an integration or something like that, things are a lot more expensive. But like I said, we do need a CRM to work with. We typically work with Blackbaud, silent partners. So depending on the size of that organization, are they bigger, smaller? So I would say it's largely dependent on what it would take to set up. But ongoing, we've tried to build this where it's scalable. And one element is that humans need humans to talk to and figure out how do we put this into our process. That's a part of it. And the more humans required to power it, the more expensive it gets. But we will start at about $150 a month.
Good to get that in at the end. For anyone watching, I probably should have prompted you for that. Yeah, and we've just past 7 o'clock now. Wes, we do have some extra questions. You can hang around for a while. I myself have to pick up a package, so I might have to bounce out right now. But I mean, from Data for Good, I wanted to thank you for your time and really explaining the crevices and the caveats that each person has to encounter, and whether like the nitty gritty details of being a data scientist and what goes on, or just being rational about what data can mislead you in. I like that you've added some visuals for the slides today to really help people out. Hopefully our viewers have picked up new ways that they can launch a predictive model to help people in need. And the right tools. I believe TensorFlow, maybe some Razor's Edge experience would be good. But yeah, I just want to thank you for your time here.
Cool. Thank you.
So, hey, thanks, Jake. Thanks a lot for doing that in spite of, I guess, your faulty camera. But, and thank you, Wes. That was a lot of information. We actually, I think we have around 7 more questions, but really sadly, we are out of time. How is your time looking, Wes? Can you answer maybe just two more questions, just so that,
Sure.
just to round
Yeah,
it up?
I mean, when I leave the office, I'm going to be accosted by children when they're hungry. So the longer I'm in here, the better.
Okay, let's just maybe do the top 2 questions. I guess the first one is, what is one feature about donors you urge all charities to record, but is often overlooked? I guess this is about data collection.
Yeah, data collection. I would say there's maybe one thing or 2 things, and they're related. When you're talking to a donor about a substantial gift, it's very much like an enterprise level sale. How it's treated in the CRM is the same as if it were a $100 gift often. And what you need to do is you need to start to track, when did you engage with that person? How are they moving through a pipeline, a sales pipeline? And that's really, that kind of data is really important. We're helping collect that if you're our client. If you're on a good CRM, that's the kind of thing that can be collected, but often overlooked because it's extra work. And the fundraisers, who are amazing, are usually not data people. And it's hard for them to collect that information in a way that keeps it nice and tight. So I would say, if you were really looking at something sort of like that idea of opportunity management or proposal management would be the #1 place if the client's on a CRM where you want to look. If they're not on a CRM, you must get on a CRM.
Definitely. I guess data literacy is also it's a skill that you should develop, and it cannot really learn it overnight.
Exactly.
Very well said. You said it better than me. But I guess the next question, the top question we have on Slido, is how important is explainability for charities? When would you be in a position to take a case of convincing them to go with deep learning? Have you ever had to convince people like deep learning is good, AI is not evil? Have you ever had to do that?
I would say 2 years ago, that was a very regular conversation for us. I would say that more recently, the idea that AI is kind of like not this evil thing that's going to Skynet take over the world and Terminators are coming, because everyone on this call kind of knows that AI is a little bit dumb. It's not taking over the world, that's for sure. We still own it.
Baby steps.
Baby steps, exactly. But one of the things that actually was very effective for us was using an analogy for something that almost everyone uses almost every day, which is your map, the way you get places. And I'm of the age where I remember when MapQuest came out. And MapQuest was absolutely amazing. You could put an address into a website and it would break down all the turns that you had to make for me to get to Toronto to Montreal. And it was incredible. And the thought of using that now today is absolutely ludicrous because I have my Google Maps. My Google Maps is actually telling me what time do I need to get into my car to show up at work on time based on the traffic and the route that I normally take. And when people start to think about that and how AI is actually helping them and it's not explained to them, it actually provides a level of comfort. That's what I found. I'll call them nerds. I'm a nerd. The nerds who want to go deep into the model, they want to understand the model, and they want to understand why a prediction was made. As we're moving into deep learning models and our federated approach, we actually can't. What we can say is that if we look at back testing or we track donor behavior over time based on predictions and how they've changed, that we can validate that the model's accurate, but we can no longer tell you why the model thought that. And I would say the nerds of the world, of which I am one of, that makes me a little bit uncomfortable because that understanding is paramount to me being a good business person or a good fundraiser. But my belief is that even people like me who want to understand how it works is just going to look at my phone and get to work on time.
In time, I guess it's going to happen sooner or later.
Exactly.
All right, we are at 7:08 and we have around 26 people who are still hanging around. Thanks a lot, guys. We promised it would be over at 7. We just want to end this session with a quick exit poll. So this is again going to be on our ever famous Slido. By now, you should see another poll popping up in your Slido. It's basically the question is, what was your favorite part from today's Fireside chat? We always try to understand what you liked and did not like, just so that we can improve upon it. So we have around 25 people hanging out here. So if at least 50% of you can answer some of the questions, it'll actually be awesome. We would have gained some valuable feedback. Once again, thank you, Wes. Feel free to answer our exit poll, but
I wasn't able to give myself 5 stars. I don't like that exit poll.
Thank you. So I think that actually brings us to the end of this Fireside chat event. We always have this awkward phase at the end. We don't know how to end it. Like, do we say bye and we just cut the session or anything? But if we have 23 people right now, if anyone wants to just call out and say thank you, we are okay with it. But yeah, there someone's asking when is the next event. So we actually have 2 more people from Stats Canada lined up. We have for a fireside chat. They're going to be talking about the latest innovations. The date has not yet been set. We hope it's sometime in the end of May or hopefully the mid-May. But we will definitely keep you updated. Reach out to us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. But we are answering everywhere. Jake, who hosted a session tonight, is our marketing lead. He's front and center. He will be answering all your questions on all social media platforms. I have to thank Wes again because I'm going to be doing what I said. I'm just going to hang the call after this awkward bye. Thanks all. Yeah, everyone thanks US. There are like tons of thank you messages in the Google chats. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Let us know what you think.
That was
Bye.
awesome. Be good, people.